Welcome to part 2 of my review of the rules in the Warzone Damocles supplement. Previously we had a look at the White Scars bit, now we're going to have a look at the Raven Guard bit. Ooh, pretty picture. Raven Guard, Talon Strike Force. Just as with the White Scars, this is made up of 1 or 2 cores and 1+ auxiliaries. So, as with the White Scars, you can bring a battle demi company from this book here and then add on your auxiliaries, or you can bring a pinion battle demi company and add on auxiliaries to bring along a Talon strike force. Or as you're allowed up to 2 cores, you could bring along both. Unlike the White Scars, instead of there only being 4 formations here, there's actually 7. So the Raven Guard have a bit more choice. If you field a Talon strike force with a battle demi company as its core, we know you get objective secured for everything in the battle demi company, and we know you get your tactical doctrine once per game. If you drop that out and go for the pinion battle demi company, what you get instead? Well, it looks like this, and it's arranged much as a battle demi company. You've got chaplain or captain, command squad if you want to bring it, 3 tactical squads, an assault and a devastator. So that's pretty much the same. You don't have a choice of chucking in a dreadnought there or not. That's pretty much the same. And then you can bring in 1 to 5 units of bikes or scout bikes. Scouts or scout bikes. And you need your scouts to do what this battle demi company does. Scalp support. Basically, if there's another unit from this formation within 9 inches of your scout sergeant, that unit gains ignore cover. Remember, it's units from this formation, so it's the devastators or the tactical marines from this formation shooting at an enemy unit within 9 inches of a scout sergeant ignores cover. That's pretty beef, that's pretty good. Think jinking wave serpents, or think jinking anything, or think enemy units embedded in cover somewhere and you lighten them up with a devastator squad. From range, the tactical squads are only going to be shooting really 1 weapon. It's not overpowered, it's not giving it to everything. So it doesn't give it to your Grav Centurions, for example. And the downside of it, of course, is your scout sergeant is within 9 inches of an opponent's unit, which means he's probably very close to the front line and probably very close to getting smashed by something. Interestingly, it doesn't say he has to have line of sight or anything like that. It says scout support. He can spot another enemy unit, but it doesn't say he has to see him. I guess the sergeant's just uploading telemetry data. It doesn't also state that the scout sergeant can't shoot and can't do anything, so your units of scouts are still doing what they do, and you get this bonus. Also, if you bring your scout squads or your scout bike squads, they can count as wayfinders, so when they come in from reserve, the units that they're attached to, they lead 1 more unit comes in from reserve. So up to 5 of these, bringing in 5 of these, and if the scout squad or scout bike squad outflanks, the unit it is leading will arrive from the same table edge even if it cannot normally outflank. So that's what the pinion battle demi company does primarily. You'll lose the objective secured that you get in the battle demi company, but you can have 5 units in reserve with 5 scouts attached to them, and instead of the units coming on here, your whole army can outflank from the right or left table edges. Then factor in the command benefits for the Talon strike force. And number 2, know when to strike. If any unit starts in reserve, you can choose to make reserve rolls for any of them at the start of your first turn, and they come in on a 4. So everything from this formation comes in on a 4+ from turn 1, and then a 3+ from the subsequent turns. The Raven Guard, therefore, make a very nice null deployment army. An army where you deploy everything in reserve, and then in turn 1, stuff starts rolling in from your table edge, and any unit from this formation that you attach scouts to can outflank right and left from turn 1. Outflanking isn't necessarily an overpowered tactic. Now you can't assault from reserve anymore, but you can picture your deployment zone with nothing in it. Your opponent has got nothing to move, shoot, and assault in turn 1. It's essentially wasted all that turns of firepower, and then your army, 50% of your army, rocks up here, some of it outflanking, and potentially some of it coming down in drop pods as well. It's a sneaky Raven Guard, fluffy, narrative driven. I like it. It's not overpowered. It won't be overpowered in 7th edition, but it's nice. Talking about sneaky, Raven Guard can re-roll the mission table, re-roll random deployment zones, and re-roll to see who deploys first. So if you're rolling for your mission, rather than picking it with your opponent and you don't like it, roll again. If you don't like what table edge you've picked, you can roll again. And if you really, really want to go first or second, you can roll again. That is a powerful ability. Of course, there will be games where re-rolling the mission or re-rolling deployment won't be of any use at all, but there'll be some games where it will be a very powerful ability, particularly when you factor in the Raven Guard's ability to outflank, the Raven Guard's ability to hold its entire army in reserve. And the last command benefit, know when to fade. You can always choose to fail morale checks for units from this detachment. The old and they shall know no fear ability. You have a unit that gets lit up in the shooting phase and is about to get assaulted. Choose to fail your morale check, fall back out of charge range of your opponent. If you don't manage to fall back far enough and your opponent manages to catch you in the assault, you don't have to pass a leadership test to see if you're destroyed or not, because Space Marines automatically pass that leadership test. They will regroup and they will fight as normal. Space Marine veterans out there will remember this ability, and we're certainly sad to see it go. Well, now it's back, and it's back in the hands of the Raven Guard. It's nice. I keep saying nice, don't I? I keep saying nice because when we looked at the White Scars supplement, I came to the conclusion that it probably wasn't as powerful as the Gladius Strike formation. It was narrative driven, and you would want to bring it if you want to play White Scars, but if you want to play competitive, you probably want to stick with the Gladius Strike formation. But this stuff, this is probably more powerful than the Gladius Strike formation, as well as being narrative driven, as well as being fluffy, in my humble opinion. I think this ability to re-roll game types and re-roll first, second turn deployment, I think that in competitive play is quite strong. I think being able to reserve an entire army isn't very, very strong, but combined with a Pinion Battle Demi Company and combined these rules all together, yeah, it gets a bit pokey, and no enter fade is just a nice little cherry on the cake. Let me just repeat, however, that the scouts in the Pinion Battle Demi Company lead another unit in this formation. You're not going to have scout bikers leading in land raiders outflanking from the right and left flank. You're going to be bringing in your rhinos and your assault marines and your devastating marines right and left. But if you do it well, your opponent should have no idea which way your army is coming in and on what turn it's coming in. It's nice. I said nice again. In the formations, we have 1st Company, 10th Company, we have Stormwing, we have Anti-Air Force, Suppression Force. We have a number of formations that exist in the Space Marines Codex, and 6 more that are new to the Raven Guard, starting off with the Shadow Strike Kill Team. This is the one that I've got many people in a flap. It consists of 2 to 4 units of scouts and 1 to 3 units of Vanguard veterans. So the minimum 2 units of scouts, 1 unit of Vanguard veteran. On time, instead of rolling to see whether a unit arrives from reserve, they can choose to pass or fail that roll. And remember, Raven Guard can come in on turn 1. So these guys can choose to come in on turn 1 if they want to. On time, on target. Vanguard veteran squads can charge on the turn they arrive from Deep Strike Reserve. In addition, if they land within 9 inches of a scout, they don't scatter. If you think it through, there's some potential first turn shenanigans going on here. You can infiltrate no more than 12 inches away if you're out of line of sight, 18 inches away if you are in line of sight. So let's say that you have infiltrated 12, 13 inches away. Turn 1, your Vanguard could come in without scattering 9 inches away from your scouts and be potentially 3 or 4 inches away from your opponent, and then assault them in turn 1. Like with the White Scars Alpha Strike, the scouts in the Land Speeder Storms I talked about, If you set this up in turn 1, it's one hell of a telegraphed punch. Your opponent should be able to see it coming from a mile away. Probably the best use of this formation would be to have 2, 3, 4 units of 5-man scouts across the table. If this is your table, you'd potentially want one here, one here, one here, one here, giving out that 9-inch bubble, you'd want them spread out in various locations, so you can choose to deep strike your Vanguard veterans without rolling in turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4, whenever you want to deep strike them in, assuming your scouts are still alive. Over here or over here or over here or over here. That's probably the best way to play the formation. Having small units of scouts scattered here or there, either out of line of sight or hoping that your opponent doesn't pick on them, and then in turn 2 or turn 3, dropping a bomb all of a sudden. The ability to assault after Deep Strike Reserve is not new to Games Workshop. We've had Lucius pattern drop pods in the past, but it seems to be becoming ever so slightly more prevalent. We shall see if this is a new direction that they go in. It's probably not a great direction to go in. It's probably a little bit broken. It'll probably annoy the hell out of some people. If you manage to pull it off perfectly, it's gonna feel bad for your opponent. But if you pull it off perfectly, you will feel like a 40k god. The other interesting thing is, what about independent characters? Can you attach independent characters to this formation? I'm not going to go into a huge rules debate here, because the implications are quite big. I'll leave that to the internet. Anyway, this is what the Shadow Strike kill team does. Next formation, the Blade Wing Assault Brotherhood, consists of a chaplain or captain with jump packs, 3 Vanguard squads and 2 assault squads with jump packs. Everyone in this thing must have a jump pack. Vanguard again, huh? And basically, everyone in this formation, once per game, can disengage and be placed in ongoing reserve, even if they were locked in close combat. So suddenly, on wings of fire, they jump up and re-embark in the Thunderhawk that's been circling overhead. But when they come back in again, or when they deep strike at the very start of the game, whenever you choose to, you draw a line across the table, and they must land somewhere along that line, and you re-roll the deep strike scatter. So that's nice, being able to re-roll deep strike scatter, but bad because there'll be some that are out of place, some that are back here, some that are there, some that are there. There'll be some where you want them to be, and some probably where you have no right placing them. Being able to disengage from assault and leap back into ongoing reserve is nice, but it's a fair chunk of your army here, and dropping in the first place is perhaps not so nice. The Skyhammer Orbital Strike Force is 3 units of tactical squads in drop pods and 1 to 3 units of land speeders. So if you're going to bring a drop pod and army, bring these guys. You put a point on the tabletop. The pods will only scatter d6 inches if they land within 12 inches of that. And all your tactical marines that get out, they re-roll to hit rolls and to wound rolls of 1. And they can run and shoot on the same turn that they get out of drop pods. So as I said, if you bring in drop pods, this will make them slightly more effective. It's not broken, it's just a nice little touch. They will be able to move a little bit further and be able to kill just a little bit more. Ravenhawke Assault Group consists of a Venerable, a Storm Raven, and some Stern Guard. And when the first unit from this formation is deployed, either at the start of battle or arrives from reserve, you nominate an enemy unit, and everything in this formation re-rolls hit rolls against that unit for the duration of the battle. Also, the Storm Raven gunship has the deep strike special rule, and if it arrives from deep strike, it must hover on the turn it comes in, which is okay. The Raptor wing, what you see is what you get, and if the Storm Talons are in reserve at the start of the second turn, they'll automatically come in, because remember, you start rolling for reserves on turn 1 for Raven Guard. So your Storm Talons and your Storm Ravens, for that matter, your flyers, could be on the table, have a 50% chance of being on the table in turn 1, which is beef. The land speeder spots for these guys. Land speeder spotting an enemy unit within 18 inches away. These guys re-roll a wound and re-roll armor pens. So why would you bring this formation? You'd probably bring it if you're bringing 2 Storm Talons anyway, and getting them on the table as soon as possible is nice. And then the last one is the Shadow Strike Force. Again, another weak one. It's Captain, Sternguard, Vanguard, and a unit of land speeders, and they get acute senses, move through cover, and scout. It makes them a little bit more mobile. It gives them the ability to outflank. You can re-roll your run moves with this formation. Again, it increases the mobility of your Sternguard and your Vanguard. Throughout these formations we see a high number of Sternguard, Vanguard and Scouts, and land speeders liberally sprinkled in amongst them. There's some good ones, there's some really good ones, but all of them again stick to the narrative, stick to the fluff, stick to the Raven Guard theme. There's nothing in it that I would say is drastically overpowered, except for perhaps the ability to assault after coming in from Deep Strike Reserve, and again I see that as quite situational. There'll be times where you better pull it off and look like a ninja master, but there'll be also some times where it never ever happens for you. The Warlord traits are okay, just as Warlord traits are, except for this one. When rolling for variable game length, you can add or subtract 1 from the result if your Warlord is on the battlefield. So if you roll a 2, it can become a 3, or a 3 become a 2. That's quite nice. And then in the relic section, there's nothing overpowered. You've got some 2+ armor. You've got some nice weaponry. There's a gun that your Scout Sergeant can use, and he can shoot off at a different unit. AP3 bolter. He can shoot up off on a different unit while your scouts are all. Gives them split fire. Nothing necessarily broken in the relics of the Raven Spire, unlike that bionic eye in the White Scars bit. So the Talon Strike Force is definitely an interesting formation to bring. I think it's very narrative driven, and it seems to be quite centered around null deployment or reserve deployment, with the Skyhammer orbital strike coming in, making your pods a bit more effective, with the ability to start rolling for reserves on turn 1 and coming in on a 4+, meaning flyers can come in on turn 1, with the ability to outflank large portions of your army. It's going to be if you build a Raven Guard force, you're going to want to use your brain. You're going to probably want to think about what you want to do, how you want to do it, and pick your units very, very deliberately. I don't think it's overpowered, but there's definitely some shenanigans you can bring in, and it's definitely, as I said, narrative driven. Well, that's it. That's my review of the Raven Guard section of this book. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy wargaming.